You won't lose your power in the chaos. You lose it the second you give it a reaction. There's something most people never realize until it's too late. Every time you let something provoke you, distract you, offend you, you've handed your power away without even realizing it. And in a world that constantly pulls at your emotions, where everything is designed to get a rise out of you, the most powerful thing you can do is stay grounded in silence. Not passive, not weak, but aware, untouched. You see, reacting is easy. Anyone can get angry, anyone can shout, but it takes an entirely different level of self-mastery to sit there, feel the storm, and not become the storm. The real ones don't respond to noise. They respond to direction. They don't panic when plans fall apart. They pause. They don't explode when disrespected. They calculate, not because they're emotionless, but because they've learned the art of stillness. They've learned that a reaction is a price, and every price you pay with your energy better be worth the outcome. And the truth is, most of it isn't. Here's the trap no one talks about. Every reaction you give turns you into a mirror, and that means someone else is holding the brush, painting your emotional state. Think about it. When someone says something offensive and you snap, they controlled you. When a small inconvenience ruins your day, it owned you. When the algorithm feeds you something controversial and you rage in the comments, you gave away your peace for free. You didn't respond. You obeyed. And this is where it gets dangerous. Not because your feelings aren't valid, but because your energy is currency. And in this world, the more you spend it on distractions, the less you have for your goals, your growth, your path. That's how the world keeps people broke. Not financially, but emotionally bankrupt, exhausted, triggered, reactive. So busy fighting battles that don't matter, they never get to the war that actually does. But the people who move silently, they don't fall for the bait. They know that not everything requires a response, that peace isn't found in fighting everything. It's found in learning when to disengage. You don't have to attend every argument you're invited to. You don't need to explain your silence to those who don't deserve your voice. Because real power is quiet. It doesn't beg to be seen. It doesn't need to react. It just moves, unshaken, unapologetic, unreachable. And when you start living like that, you'll notice the world around you changes. Not because the world got easier, but because you stopped giving it permission to control you. Most people don't even realize how much of their life is run on autopilot reactions. They think they're making choices, but really they're just echoing patterns. Patterns passed down from family, society, trauma, all wrapped in the illusion of, this is just who I am. But the truth, that identity you cling to, the one that feels offended easily, overthinks everything, needs validation, or reacts to every little disturbance, that's not the real you. That's the conditioned you, the reflex of the programming. And it's not your fault, but it is your responsibility to outgrow it. Because here's the thing, silence is a decision. Patience is a decision. Walking away is not weakness, it's control. When someone disrespects you and you don't respond with rage, you've already won because you didn't let their energy enter your system. You stayed in your lane. You protected your focus. And this is why you see certain people moving so smoothly through life. They're not lucky, they're not emotionless, they're just not available to chaos. They've learned that attention is fuel. And whatever gets your attention gets your energy. So, if you keep pouring it into arguments, petty drama, fear-based thinking, or external noise, you're feeding a fire that was never meant to be yours to fight. But when you withdraw that fuel, when you learn to pause, breathe, and observe without reacting, you take back control. You start seeing clearly. You stop bleeding energy into places that can't give anything back. This shift doesn't happen overnight. But every moment you choose silence over drama, presence over reaction, reflection over impulse, you're not just making a better choice. You're becoming a different person. Not someone who's above it all, but someone who's finally free from the pull of things that once used to own them. There's something subtle, almost invisible, that begins to happen when you start pulling your energy back from everything that doesn't serve you. You begin to glow differently, not in a physical sense, but in your presence, in the way you enter a room, in the way people look at you and feel something they can't quite explain. That's the power of someone who isn't desperate for attention, approval, or outcomes. When you're no longer trying to force people to see your worth, when you're not chasing closure, not begging life to give you what you think you deserve, you create space. And in that space, mirrors show up. Not people who drain you, not environments that test your patience, but situations that reflect your peace, people that match your calm, opportunities that meet you at your level of inner stillness. See, life doesn't respond to your panic. It responds to your frequency. And when that frequency is rooted in self-trust, you no longer feel the need to prove anything to anyone. You stop explaining your path. You stop negotiating your standards. You stop reacting to noise because silence now feels more powerful than proving a point. And that's when the shift becomes obvious. You're not the same person who used to chase answers, argue for your pain, or cling to old stories. You've become someone who observes, someone who chooses peace not because it's easy, but because it's the most radical form of power in a world that thrives on overstimulation. The more you trust this process, the more your external world starts to reflect it. Not immediately, not perfectly, but undeniably. Most people spend their entire lives trying to control the uncontrollable. They micromanage conversations in their heads. They obsess over timelines. They try to force clarity where patience is required. And then they wonder why they're exhausted, why they feel stuck. But something profound shifts when you stop doing that. When you stop needing things to happen in a certain way, you finally allow them to unfold in the way they're supposed to. You stop swimming against the current. You stop rewriting what's already happened. You stop trying to predict what hasn't. And in that release, there's freedom. You start showing up to your life with a softness, but not weakness. With an openness, but not passivity. You don't shrink anymore. You expand because your energy isn't being drained trying to manipulate every variable. You walk into the unknown without needing to define it. And ironically, that's when things begin to organize themselves. That's when the right people start to appear. Not because you hunted them down, but because your energy called them in. That's when opportunities land in your lap. Not because you pushed, but because you aligned. Control is addictive. It convinces you that peace lies on the other side of certainty. But the truth is, peace isn't found in control. It's found in surrender. It's found in the pause before you react, in the breath before you over-explain, in the trust that whatever is meant for you won't need to be chased. And that trust, it's not naive. It's wisdom, hard-earned, quiet, and undeniable. This is why the more you try to control your life, the more resistance you meet. Because control assumes something is wrong. It assumes the present moment isn't enough. It assumes you aren't enough. Not yet, so you push harder. You cling tighter. And the tighter you grip, the more life slips through your fingers. But when you stop trying to force the outcome, you start realizing that life has its own intelligence. It doesn't need your anxiety to move forward. It doesn't respond to desperation. It responds to clarity. Think of all the moments where things unexpectedly worked out, when someone came back into your life at just the right time, when the job you didn't get led to something better, when your life fell apart just so it could be rebuilt stronger. None of that came from control. It came from trust, patience, alignment, things you can't manufacture with force. And here's where it shifts even deeper. When you stop trying to control life, you finally step into collaboration with it. You stop seeing yourself as the master planner and instead become a conscious participant, someone who shows up fully, takes aligned action, but lets go of attachment to how things must unfold. That's a very different way of living. You stop overthinking what to say. You stop replaying old conversations. You stop trying to read everyone's mind, and you start just being present, still, awake. And people can feel that. They're drawn to it because most of the world is too busy running from themselves. When you're no longer controlled by fear, you become magnetic without trying. You walk differently. You speak slower. You no longer seek validation because you're rooted, and that's what the world notices. Not the fake confidence, not the noise, but the quiet power of someone who doesn't need to chase anything because they've already made peace within. There's a subtle but powerful transformation that happens when you shift from trying to manage everything to simply meeting life where it is. Most people live in their heads. They try to plan every word, every move, every outcome, thinking if they just do it right, they'll avoid pain, rejection, or failure. But ironically, that mental overplanning is exactly what disconnects them from life. It's not that planning is wrong, it's that obsession is heavy. And life doesn't move through heaviness. It flows through space, lightness, and presence. Ask yourself this honestly. When was the last time you were fully present? Not anticipating the next moment, not replaying the last, just here. You'll realize that most of your tension comes from trying to predict and prevent things that might never happen. That's not intuition. That's fear pretending to be logic. And once you catch it, you realize there's a better way to live. Not passive, not careless, but open. You start to notice that the things you once stressed over didn't actually require that much effort. The text you were overthinking sent itself once you relaxed. The conversation you were dreading became easy when you stopped scripting it in your head. The opportunity appeared when you stopped chasing and just started preparing in silence. That's the real paradox. When you don't need things to happen, they often do, because your energy is no longer wrapped in control. It's wrapped in self-trust. And when you trust yourself, you stop trying to convince the world. You stop chasing people. You stop forcing timelines. You start flowing. This is when you realize something profound. Control was never safety. Control was your armor. And once you drop it, you discover something even stronger. Your ability to respond, adapt, move, and grow without losing your center. Letting go of control doesn't mean giving up. It means giving space. Space for life to surprise you. Space for your energy to return. Space for the right things to actually find you without you exhausting yourself chasing them. Because here's what no one talks about. Constant control drains your nervous system. It burns your focus. It clouds your intuition. And it leaves you mistaking over-effort for progress, when in truth, it's just survival mode in disguise. But the moment you release that grip just a little, you begin to see clearly. You begin to feel again. And most importantly, you begin to trust yourself again. That trust is magnetic. It's why some people walk into a room and don't say a word, yet everyone feels them. Because they're not performing. They're not calculating. They're simply present, and presence is rare. The less you try to force a reaction, the more powerful you become. The less you need to control, the more peace you create. And the less you grasp for certainty, the more life reveals itself to you, moment by moment, with no resistance. If this message landed with you today, comment flow below. That one word is enough to let me know you're walking this path too. And if you felt seen or helped by this video, share it with someone who might need to hear it. Because sometimes just one shift in perspective changes everything. See you in the next one. Stay grounded, stay clear,